Sorry.
This is a regular meeting of the Planning Commission of the Town of Clarkdale. I'm calling the meeting to order. And may we have a roll call, please?
Chair LeBlanc,
Here?
Vice Chair Conk, Commissioner Alan Spence,
Here.
Commissioner Amy Bayless, sorry,
Here.
Commissioner Marcia Fouts,
Here.
and Advisory Carol Johnson.
All right, my agenda says public comment, and is anyone on Zoom?
No.
Well, shall we open public comment and then close it? Yes. All right, minutes, approval of minutes. Discuss, consider, and act upon the draft minutes from the regular meeting on December 16, 2025. So, does anyone have anything to discuss or consider before we take a motion? May we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the December 16th meeting as written.
Right, do we have a second?
Second.
And those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Thank you. New business, selection of the chair. Discuss, consider, and act upon the selection of the chair. Is there anything for discussion? Is there anything anyone would like to discuss?
I'll just throw out there, Madam Chair, for the commission. I think it was mentioned before, we're just looking to make this a calendar year appointment rather than, I think it was September or something, October. So I think it'd be a little bit smoother, have it as a calendar year. So we'll do it in January normally, but we didn't have a meeting this January. So the way it'll work is we'll put this on the agenda every January's meeting. And it doesn't mean, let me make sure I explain this right. So when that election takes place, it doesn't change in that meeting. It'll start at the next meeting. So if it were to change tonight, you would still chair this meeting. It would just be the next meeting that it would change. So it is up to the commission to nominate, keep it the same, whatever your desire is.
All right, thank you.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Don't we have new officers that come in September? And that seems like that makes sense to me because we have all these new people that maybe will come in September. So maybe we'd be replacing the chair and vice chair then. So I don't know.
It is a possibility that could happen. I mean, I don't think it happens often enough to make it a concern. It's just consistency makes it a little easier to do it as a calendar year event.
It's fine. I just, all right, great.
All right. So we had to discuss, consider. I just want to say that whoever is the chair, it's important that whoever is the chair is able to be here most of the time, almost all the time, actually. So that's the only thing to consider. Go ahead.
I nominate yourself to run, to continue as chair through this calendar year 2026.
Thank you. Do we have any other?
Here you go. Last time it was kind of a last man standing.
I've been doing this for 10 years. Yeah. No, I'm willing, I'm happy to do it, actually. I'm very happy to do it. And I rarely miss a meeting. And for 2026, my calendar is clear. So I'm willing to do it unless someone else would like to, move into this job.
I don't want it.
All right. Then,
I will second the nomination.
all right, thank you. Do we want to?
Yeah, you'll have to take a vote on it.
How many people love me? No, sorry.
Can you bring trees?
It'll just be
Gonna
like
pay
any
us,
action.
you better
item.
make
You have a
it, you know,
motion and a
pretty-
second, so.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you, and I appreciate it. I'm happy to serve as chair. And next, we have selection of the vice chair. Discuss, consider, and act upon the selection of the vice chair. Does anyone have anything they would like to discuss? I think I would. Who is our vice chair? And
He's missed
did
the
we
last
get
few minutes, yeah.
did we get advance notice that he would not be here available? Does anyone have any concerns about that?
I think you attended one meeting.
All right. Is there anything anyone would like to add to that discussion or consider?
Would either of you like to be vice chair?
I would nominate you. I nominate Alan.
I can do it. I've served as chair in the past, so.
I nominate Amy then.
Okay.
I second.
Because Alan looks like he really doesn't
Right.
want it.
Okay, good. And those in favor of Amy as vice chair, say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right. Great. Thank you. All right, discussion items only, no action taken. Design review guidelines. Discussion of what design guidelines should be added to Chapter 11 Design Review of Clarkdale Zoning Code. And I'm guessing that we're going to have a report or a presentation.
No, Madam Chair, not tonight. We're just kind of bringing this in front of the commission just to get the ball rolling, just to get that discussion started. As you know, and you've seen and you heard this past, I think it was November, December, with House Bill 2447 that the legislature passed last year, it takes design review away from the commission, makes it an administrative process. So it doesn't mean that we can't have design standards, but it does mean we have to be careful how we do that. We can't use language anymore like, you know, the character of the neighborhood or has to look good or anything like that. So there's certain things we can do. I know that we kind of want to, and Clarkdale wants to kind of be in the middle. We don't want to be excessive, and I will pick on some places like Sedona and Paradise Valley. I blame them for this law that passed. We don't want to be super open-ended either. Like I think Camp Verde is pretty open-ended. So we kind of want to land in the middle somewhere. So we want to start talking about what that could look like for Clarkdale. What do we want to potentially discuss? And moving forward, we'll bring more solidified things and we can put it in a presentation and that kind of stuff. So right now, it's just kind of to get that ball rolling, like I said, and kind of in conjunction with the overall zoning code update that we're working on, which should come to you. Well, we're doing a joint meeting with council towards the end of March, and then that'll be brought to you in April for recommendations. So we want to get this going kind of in conjunction with that. It doesn't have to happen at the same time per se, but if it happens soon after, that'd be good. So Clover, I'm gonna have her go over some things that you don't have it in front of you, this is just kind of some of the stuff that we talked about to bring up and get that discussion started. What you do have though is the document that the League of Cities and Towns put up which talks about those objective design standards, what we can look at, what we can't look at. So we can look at, things like massing.
In our.
Yeah, it's in your packet.
Are we looking at this?
Yeah, well, that's just kind of a general resource guide. Like, here's the things you can look at, things you shouldn't look at. To put it simply, we could look at like building form and frontage relationships, parking locations, that we want to make sure parking lots are at the back of the building or in the front or in the side or any mix of whatever. Material categories, mechanical screening, massing, scale, landscaping, blank walls, those sorts of things we can look at as we do it as a whole. But we can't do architectural style. We can't do architectural details.
Can I say something? So, we, you can use something as an example, though, that something, because it has to fit in with the region, and the style needs to fit in there. So how do you say it needs to have a style similar to this and that? Can
We
that-
can't.
No.
We can't. That's one of the things that they took away from us. And on sports, yeah, go ahead.
I believe that we sort of landed on that it has to be, anything required has to be measurable,
Yes,
definable.
yes,
It can't be a matter of taste
correct,
or preference.
correct.
So that's what I understood from our last.
Correct.
But it says in here that it needs to fit in with the existing community. How do you define that?
That's what we're here to discuss, and that's some of the things that I just mentioned, like the building forms and the frontages and the placement of the parking and those kinds of things. But color, for example, is not really, it gets really hard on color unless you do a lot similar to what Sedona does, and they're very strict, and they have, this range to this range, and that's it. You can't do anything outside of that. And I don't believe the town as a whole wants to restrict color that much. I mean, it gets hard,
Compatibility,
Yeah.
yeah.
but we can't focus on that anymore, unfortunately. And unfortunately,
Did say that you could, if what was measurable about paint and color was the reflectivity.
Correct.
Because that's something you can measure.
you can, yes, that is an aspect of the color that we can look into. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of details right now, but there is another bill going through the legislature this year that would also apply to everything that we're going to talk about that we can do. They're taking the next step and potentially getting rid of all of that as well. I don't want to necessarily wait to see what happens with that before we start this discussion. I think we can and should have this discussion now because there's no guarantees that the bill will pass. And so it's a good thing to move forward on at this point. So I'll let Clover go over some of the things that she came up with, just some examples of things, what we're finding that other places, this is still very new. Not a lot of places have done much yet with it. So this is kind of going to be the way I see it, a work in progress over the next couple of months. Probably we're not looking to make hard and fast decisions right now, just ideas that we can take back and then put them together and bring to the commission for further discussion and kind of, go from big picture, super broad and narrow it down till we get to a final design standard. Yeah. No, Gus, do we have a microphone over here? We just got to make sure we get it on recording. So, yeah, that's totally fine. I'll wait till you get settled over there and then answer your question. Thank you, guys.
So my question was, planned area development, do we still have those?
We do. In fact, that's one of the chapters that we did last week, 2 weeks ago with the Citizen Advisory Commission on the zoning code update. And we just went through the planned area development chapter, revised it as a whole. But again, that's where we have to be careful on design standards for that. And that bill that I said is currently at the legislature looks to go one step further and prevent us from having any say on that. It's important to note, though, too, that a planned area development, when it comes through, because it will come through the commission and then it will go to town council, the commission's not going to be able to look at the design aspects of that. Only staff can look at that.
All right, thank you. Anything else from anyone? Yes.
Question,
Please.
is this where they gave a couple examples of towns in California, examples of objective
Yes.
criteria?
Yes.
Okay.
I have another comment. It's just a comment that everybody comes bringing up Sedona. Well, Sedona falls under this too. They're not exempt, so it'd be really interesting to see how they're dealing with it. And in fact, that's probably a question of all these references. They're in California. Do we have any community here that has started to implement this?
I'm not 100% sure who has implemented anything quite yet. I haven't done that much research, but I know Clover has come across a few things that she's going to discuss with you.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And if there's nothing else, are we ready? Clover, you have something for us?
Yeah, so when we're talking about standards, so you're talking about, or Marsha was talking about how, how do we make it, without saying, like the community or keep it, in the character of Clarkdale. There are certain standards that we can talk about making part of a design review that would help to continue that characteristic. So that's the kind of stuff we need to do research on. There's all kinds of stuff. So there's like glass type, you could say tinted or mirrored glass is prohibited at ground floor. What does the rest of Clarkdale do? That might be something we could look at. There's facade articulation triggers. So that means for every, 20 feet of the building frontage, within that 20 feet, you would do something like some kind of projection, like the building would need to come outward a little bit and then go back in, you could go another 20 feet and then something else needs to happen. That kind of stuff, or changing the roof line or whatever that might be. So it's just figuring out what kind of details Clarkdale, what kind of characteristics it has already and deciding on whether or not that would be something we would want to implement. And we can get down to that kind of nitty gritty to make it match the characteristics of Clarkdale.
Will this
So-
be? Will you be coming up with something for the whole town or parts of the town?
So most of this, this is going to be, so this doesn't include single family residential. So this would be new or commercial projects that, rehabilitation projects, things of that nature, rebuilds or remodels of commercial buildings. There aren't a lot in Clarkdale, so I don't think it's something we'd run into often. But even the new commercial developments, that would include, if someone was bringing in an apartment complex, it would fall under new commercial, into which then they would have to adhere to these kinds of design guidelines. But we can't, if we have like you said, our Clarkdale characteristics or whatever it might be that we would like to hold on to, we can do that if we really look into and and really, maybe not limit, but give specifics, like when it talks about prohibited materials for the front of a building, like in Cottonwood, they don't allow unfinished CMU on street facades. So if the building, the front of the building that's facing the street, it can't just look like it's a block wall, a gray block wall. It has to, have some type of facade on there, some type of other material, whether that be stone or whether that be, whatever.
So,
Mhm.
Conwood has made it, all the round rock things all through there is their theme. That you can say what materials.
Right, you can prohibit and you can list certain materials. I don't know if we would want to get into listing like the ones, there might be one or two, like the unfinished CMU street facade, like that's pretty, I think I can't remember which one. There's another jurisdiction locally where you can't have corrugated metal on your front, the front of your building. That can't be one of the materials used.
You could say
Um,
all stucco or all stone, or we can
Mhm.
specify
Or
material.
you could specify, and I mean, you would want to leave it, you wouldn't want to make it too strict and maybe have it be like you have to have a minimum of two. Like you do need to transition. It
Okay.
can't all be stucco. Like you need to do, things of that nature. But we'd really want to look and see what Clarkdale embraces, and then that's, how we would want to set these standards up. Again, we wouldn't want to make anything like Scott said, we really want to be in the middle. We don't want to be like super restrictive. I mean, the reflective color stuff that Sedona does, I mean, they get pretty nitty gritty about it. We could do more of like a range. So you would, no, can't have a big commercial building and paint it all black. Or,
I mean, is that possible?
it is, you can go, there are examples of where you could actually go in, so like say you did have a certain range that you were doing, and we do recommend having a larger range, definitely take out the extremes on both ends, but kind of have that middle. But then you can kind of limit that and make it more depending on the surface, the facade, the accent colors, the trim, the roofs. You can then vary those.
So I want to give an example. Out here, when they were planning this, it was the design was less than lovely. And a lot of the problem with it is it was, this is color, but it could be just thought of like dark in there too. It was teal, blue, white, and black. And then the next building to it was copper, white, and black. And, so we can't say copper and we can't say teal. But the contrast was just, mind boggling. So that the contrast could be limited in that it would have to be.
If you
like
minimize the
limited
LRV
line.
range,
Yeah.
right? So if you made that range real small for the trim,
Mhm.
they couldn't go like white or black, they couldn't go extreme.
This was the
colors
trim,
like
this was
that.
the whole
Right.
facade.
Or even
Yeah.
the services, whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
So
If you
that
can-
could be, so that helps me a lot
Mhm.
because it was.
There
the
is,
contrast
yeah,
that was
there is a way to
horrendous.
do it. Like I said, we don't, I think, want to make it, too restrictive, but we'd like to come together as a group and get everyone's ideas and then, get something.
We
that-
could argue on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Because there are ways to do it, that are feasible, that aren't, like making it, I don't, but anyway, so yes, there are ways to do that. Some of the common objectives for commercial, standards that get used are, like ground floor transparency. So for a commercial building, really having that ground floor be like windows or some type of something that's transparent. Having blank wall maximums. So again, going, like here's an exact 25 to 40, in between the 25 to 40 feet mark, you have some kind of transition, something that makes the building, stand out. You could have parapets, a lot of commercial buildings are flat roofs. So then it's like, how do you design that parapet? How tall can it, do you want to require transition? If you're going straight across, you need to come down and do something and go back up at this, things of that nature. Lighting is something we can definitely, the fully shielded, the 3000 kelvins, things of that nature, which again would be addressed in the outdoor lighting code. But again, something we can do as a design standard. Again, the facade materials, there's different ways to do that. Require, a minimum, you must have 2 up to, maybe there's a max. You wouldn't want more than 5, I don't, whatever it might be. Things of that nature. Some other awnings, making the, definitely having things about that. Maybe you want awnings, maybe it's not part of the characters, whatever it might be. So, and if so, how big they would be, the clearance, things of that nature. Those are just, those are some of the ideas. Talks about cornices is another thing, storefront bays. So require, again, that kind of that pop out, like display windows. I don't know, things of that nature. So, but things to think about and where we would like to get direction from you guys, what should be included, what should not. I mean, obviously with our small staff, we're happy to have anybody do research to actually see like maybe what the characteristics of Cottonwood, incorporate, like what do they include? Like how, the buildings, what would we like to portray and how does that look when you break it down into, okay, blank wall maximum, what is that? The facade materials, what would those typically be that would capture Clarkdale's essence, so that's the kind of feedback we need from you guys. I mean, we can come up with a blanket form and have these things in here, but is that going to be really what you guys want to see when it comes to it?
Is there anything else anyone on the commission has to bring up now for Clover?
It
No.
just seems like it's a huge job to come up with all this criteria. Even if it's in the middle between Sedona and Camp Verde. But I just don't, I think we want to ward off ugly commercial buildings, right? However that's done. And I don't know myself, I'm not an architect, how to put that into writing. I guess is Cottonwood kind of in between would you consider Cottonwood between the two? So
Yeah,
I kind of,
I would say they are.
and maybe a couple other communities we can probably identify to kind of at least get an idea. And then I guess anything that's been built in Cottonwood in the last few years under these rules, and if anything that's been built is ugly, so how did that happen? How did that, and how could we cut that off at the pass, I guess?
Well, I think we could look at, incorporating some of the more common elements that Clover kind of talked about already with, like the breaking up of the walls and certain materials being allowed in certain ways, like, a blank CMU wall on the street frontage. We can easily address those kinds of things. It's just, getting into the details of some of it. And like Clover was mentioning, the LRVs, what range do we want to consider on that? Make it reasonable. I'm sure everybody can agree, we don't want a hot pink building in the middle of downtown. So, make sure that we can address that and keep that reasonableness and make it, even though we can't use the terms of fitting in with the character and that kind of stuff, do what we can to kind of guide it that way without using that terminology.
Thank you.
So-
Are you finished? with your, did you have something else?
And you said it's commercial, not for housing developments?
It's for everything. It's for everything across the board. Yeah. And I've seen some places who are working on theirs right now, going as far as kind of back to your planned area development question. Where in a planned area development, they're going to say that no two houses can be next door to each other with the same color. And so they're breaking it up. They're using that to break up that type of stuff and saying that even that, I think I saw you can't have two houses with the same floor plan next door to each other as well. So they're going to those kinds of design guidelines for that.
It doesn't include single family housing. Right.
Outside of a PAD. It does not include single family homes outside of a PAD.
Right.
And it include industrial buildings?
It would include, yeah, anything that's not a single family home on a lot outside of a PAD.
And the historic area has its own.
So the historic area would have to have its own set of design standards, but
Okay.
that gets a little tricky because they're going back and forth on exempting historic areas and not. And so that's the big back and forth right now is, do they want to now go to that next step too and say, this applies even in a historic area. You can't restrict it. So that's, kind of what's on the table right now down there.
Okay.
Thank you. Carol, did you want something? No? All right, and Amy?
So, back to Marsha's point about the buildings. So we could conceivably, instead of getting like a white building next to a teal building, excuse me, say that the LRVs have to be within this range from one building to the next, but can't be the exact same color. So you get some variation, but you don't get a huge contrast in. So if the building that's already there is red,
Mhm.
you still have to come in within a certain range, but you can't put in another red building.
And one, I think my understanding of this is, yes, we can look at doing that. The unfortunate part of all of this for just about everybody is there's a lot of legal interpretation going on right now about it. Everybody's city and town attorneys all have different takes on it. And some of them are a little more conservative than others, and some of them are, yeah, just go for it. Let's see what happens. Hopefully we don't, be the ones who, not us Clarkdale, but whoever, we don't be the ones to generate the first court case to see how everybody has to play this game. So,
Somebody has to be the test case.
but from my understanding, yes, we can do what you just described. It's just about how do we do it with the language that would make it.
Right. Because I think that's Marsha's biggest concern is like the design, but also the colors coming in. So.
And it may be as simple, again, it's really this, what we do here is going to take a lot of work with our legal team as well, just to make sure that we're within what we can do. But, it could be as simple as saying that you can't have two buildings of the same color based on LRV next door to each other. And, but then what if it's just one shade difference and essentially they're the same color? So we got to play with how that might work and to what extent we can do that.
Yeah.
I have to say, it's kind of humorous because all of this was all brick red down
Mhm.
below, every single building. But-
Well, and again, that's something that's still kind of up in the air right now is if it's a historic district, we might still be able to require that in the historic district. I mean, I'm not saying we can, I'm just saying, depending on what happens. So.
I have a comment. So there's no public hearings anymore from this bill?
Not for design review and not for plats, but there will be for conditional use permits and there will be for rezones.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
I just want to put something in or understand something. So the design review process is in the hands of the staff. And the staff can have discussion with people on the planning commission regarding, just like we are now. Right now, this is the planning commission and we're having a discussion about what does the future look like for design review. So it sounds to me like what we're wanting to do is have a voice in what is the kind of documentation that you need to fall back on when there's a question about how do we proceed here? Is that a fair review of where we are?
I would say it is, yeah. I mean,
Okay,
it's, yeah, definitely, how do we want that to look? Because it's been taken out of your hands. How do we put it now into, and the other question too, that we're still working through, is whether this goes into the zoning ordinance is actually part of the code, or if it becomes adopted as a policy, to have some flexibility and changes if we need to change them. So that's still something that we are discussing internally that we'll bring, in front of the commission at a later time.
well, personally, I think flexibility is really required.
Yeah.
And
And even as a
That's-
policy, it can be adopted by the commission and council.
Yeah.
So, we'll bring it to the commission saying, hey, this is, if we don't want to put it in the code, this is the policy. Do you recommend this policy to council? And then they could adopt it in that sense. It's an option. So like I said, we're still discussing what that might look like.
well, what do you think about having some sort of a work session or a workshop or discussion
With
at a
council?
later date with the staff and the people that have a concern about it?
And
That's warranted, or?
Are
think-
you meaning council or just?
No, I mean, the community development department
Mhm.
and that, the staff and whoever the people are that have a big concern about this. I mean, it seems like there's an opportunity for some kind of discussion outside of a commission meeting. And maybe not, just, I can hear the concern.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but at the same time, these meetings are open to the public to come and express, how they feel about it, what their thoughts are, have the discussion right now, like we're doing moving forward. As far as the commission and staff, that's why we're here tonight to talk about this, work through it.
Okay,
And we'll have, this is not the only meeting we're going to have to discuss this. It's going to be a
Okay.
multiple meeting process to get
no
to
extra
a final
meeting.
document. So.
No extra. All right, thanks. Yes.
A question. On page 13 as a guide here at the bottom, is Cottonwoods, is that based on yes, no, or scorecards, or just how do they, what's their framework?
You're looking at, yes,
Um,
no.
Page 13 and 24?
I don't think they've even gotten that far yet. They're still doing a lot of work on theirs. They don't have anything set and adopted yet. They just have some ideas floating around.
Okay.
I have not seen the yes, no yet, though. But these are the things, that we wanted to talk to the commission about tonight. What part of these do you want us to take from this meeting and work on to bring back to the next one? Do we want to consider, the yes, no scorecards? We can put together what that might look like. Do we want to consider the LRV that Clover mentioned? Do we want to consider the massing and what that might look like and what those numbers look like? I think one of the things we mentioned early on, if you have a wall that's running 40 or 100 feet, okay, we don't want a straight wall running 100 feet, just the same plane. So do we break it up at 40 feet? They have to go in 2 feet and over this many and come back out, kind of like looking at that. So that's the kind of stuff that we will bring back if the commission wants to see that kind of stuff. To kind of see what that'll look like in the form of these design guidelines.
Well, does anyone have anything they want to recommend here, or you're asking a question really?
Yeah, essentially, you know, are there specific things that we've mentioned tonight that you do want to see us bring back to incorporate into here?
Go ahead, Carol.
Well, my comment is somehow I think we need to get this out to the public of what's happening here. And unfortunately, I put that on the town, can we?
And we
put
can,
some
yeah, we
things
can
in the
definitely.
Small talk, and so people understand what's going on, and maybe they'll start showing up at meetings to make comments on things.
Yeah, we can definitely make a push for it. And you know, back to your comment on what that looks like. We don't have to just do this at these meetings. We can do a work session, or we can look into what other kind of format we can get public input on it. Put an announcement on the website. I think Susan can put it in the newsletter that she does, that kind of stuff, if you're looking for that public input.
Very good. Yeah. Well,
But you're saying there can be public input. That's what you just said.
To establish these, just
Oh,
to
to
look at
establish.
this, not, yeah, to help us figure out what we want this to look like.
It's
We
like
would need a lot of examples of what a scorecard would look
Oh,
like.
yeah.
and-
Yeah, we can bring that.
Maybe an example from a couple other towns,
Mhm.
what they do.
Okay.
That'd be helpful.
I just want to say one thing, that so much is on you guys, and it sounds like you have a lot of experience, and so
Yeah, it does, it does get time consuming. That's the only hard part, and the primary focus right now has been getting through this code update because we're at crunch time. We're running out of meetings, but the light's flickering at the end of the tunnel, so we're getting there. But yeah, we'll, work on a lot of this stuff too, a lot of the stuff with the Historic Preservation Commission and get those things moving forward.
anything else for anyone?
All right, any other specific comments or thoughts you want us, we'll, gather what we have here and bring it back in a more formalized presentation for you next time. And again, we're not going to be looking for any action at the next meeting either.
Example,
Yep, we'll throw in some examples.
having to go through a tremendous amount of work. You've given us a couple of examples this
Mhm.
evening. So for example, one of the things that you talked about is when there's 100-foot wall.
Right.
So when there's 100-foot wall, these are the options.
Right.
You can change the height up and down. You can change the facade in and out. You can make an alteration in materials. You could, like maybe there's 4 or 5 options for design review for altering the appearance of one flat blank wall that's all the same height everywhere. So.
Yeah, we can absolutely bring examples of that. And we'll put it in a presentation, put it on the screens for everybody to look at, and then we can decide what we like, what we don't, how far we want to take it. Yeah.
Couple, I don't know that you have to, redesign the whole thing, but this list of, you have objective standards. So a couple of illustrations of the way objective standards would be written up and understood by both the community development department, the people on the commission, and the developer coming in. So, it gives you a place to put your feet down instead of wondering what you're going to say to the developer.
Right.
I have another comment. There's another thing in this new law that if a developer is well-known, they can kind of expedite, and they don't really have to go through a lengthy kind of review, even with staff.
Yeah, we're still looking into what that looks like, the language of it. And I'll have to go back. I don't remember off the top of my head if it was mandated or an option. So, if it's an option, we don't have to allow for it, but we can, but it's still gonna be, they still have to get their formal design review approval from staff. It's not gonna take that part of it away.
Is there anything else? If not,
I'd just say,
yes.
yeah, a few pictures of good and bad
Mhm.
would be helpful. So I can picture, here's a bad commercial building. This is what not to do.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep, we can do that.
So regarding future agenda items, if this part is complete, if this discussion items only, no action taken is complete, then we're looking at future agenda items.
So right now, we'll bring this. We potentially have a project to bring you for the March meeting. We will know that in the next week or so. So there could be a conditional use permit brought before you in March. And then again, like I said, we'll keep, working on this. And as far as what we have from staff, that'd be about it right now.
All right. Well, thank you. This has been great.
Right?
We're ready. Number 8 on your agenda.
I
Oh,
make a
really,
motion.
really quick, can I throw in, don't forget, next week is the joint meeting with council to go over the housing study.
And
Tuesday, 5, yes,
It's Tuesday at 5.
that's the 24th.
the 24th at 5
Yeah.
o'clock. Yes,
We have that.
yes.
Everybody have that?
Yeah, it's a review of the housing study.
We have a meeting in March too.
Yes.
Correct. St. Pat.
2 of them in March because we'll have a joint meeting to review. We'll have the regular meeting of the commission, and then we'll have another joint meeting with council to review the zoning code updates.
All right.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you very much. This was great.